Hello, and welcome to the Last Movie Outpost for all of your movie news, reviews, and everything cool about film. We've got another indie movie which we're talking about, and a wonderful director by the name of Bizhan Tong. Hello and welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem, not a problem. Now, you have got a new movie coming out called Tape. It's an unusual one because it's an Asian remake of an American movie, whereas obviously we hear about them mostly the other way around. But the story is three former classmates reunite in Hong Kong, but a buried secret resurfaces, forcing them to confront the past, each other, and the limits of the truth. Like I say, it's an American remake of a Richard Linklater film, but what drew you to the movie, first of all?
The original film, when it came, I mean, that was made in 2001, and I watched it in the UK cinema. I remember Odeon Camden Town in 2002, and it was a film that stuck with me because you're always, especially as a teenager, you're trying to explore different types of films, trying to understand the cinema landscape, and it was so different. And this was Richard Linklater exploring DV filmmaking, of course. At that time, you had Mike Figures of Time Code and so on and so forth, but also the story that was being told, and the fact that it was just this single room film with three characters, but with such visceral performances, it made me realize the possibilities of what you can do within that space if you have a great story to tell. And of course, you're looking at it from different perspectives with more ambiguity and so on and so forth. So that was when it stuck with me. It had an impact on what I wanted to tell as a story as a filmmaker. And in fact, my debut feature, The Escort, had a Tape actually as an influence and Before Sunrise. So I was definitely a huge Linklater fan. We're coming now to 20 years later. And I've just done a crime series, Forensic Psychologist in Hong Kong. I'm now focusing on bridging East and West, and I've done a thriller called Lockdown. And I'm trying to think about what story do I want to tell next. And it made me think about Tape. And the reason for that is during my time engaging within the film industry, both in the UK and in Hong Kong, I'm constantly hearing stories, and we know about the Me Too movement. That movement happened, of course, in 2017. And I'm talking to various actresses, and we all have those horror tales to speak of, not to the extent of Weinstein, but still, the small things.
Yeah.
It could be an actress who was asked out on a date by a director and she declined, and the next day the director filmed just her shoulder, and she was comparing her shoulder. She's giving a performance, and all that's being filmed is the shoulder, and it's petty. And I'm realizing there's also within Asia, there's a cultural taboo. There's a cultural impact there. The Me Too movement never took place in Asia. So we always talk about it being this global phenomenon, but in actual fact, Asia was one area where it didn't really have an impact. So I was curious about the original Tape, because that film was made in 2001. It had nothing to do with the Me Too movement, although the storyline itself is very much engaged with the Me Too movement. And if you made it after that time, people would think it's clearly jumping on a bandwagon. So it made me feel like this is a very authentic story. It came from a heart from Stephen Belber. And I wanted to retell that story in Asia. I wanted to tell that story, but rather look at the cultural implications of imagining you're telling this story at a time in a region where Me Too never took place. What would be the impact on these characters? And then, of course, the world itself has changed. We're more technologically dependent. I mean, the fact is that you and I right now talking digitally on a video call is reflective of that. And I thought we can incorporate that into the story. So that's really what drew me. And then finally, I didn't want to just be someone who licenses the rights and makes a remake, my own thing. I really wanted to have the original DNA, the original team who made the US film, the film that inspired me, to be involved. And so I reached out to Steve Belber, who wrote the play, who wrote the original film, and I pitched to him that it's not just licensing. I want you to help me. I want you to co-write the remake with me, and he did. And that's been wonderful. And then, of course, with Richard Linklater and John Sloss, who produced Boyhood and Green Book, who produced the original Tape, it wasn't just, I need your names. It was more a case of, look, I want you to be involved. I want your blessing. I also want, from a level of QC, quality control, I want to make sure the film is something that you're willing to put your names to. And that was literally the case. So, we had to make sure Linklater had to watch it, John Sloss had to watch it before we could even consider having their names on the film. And thankfully, they've been very supportive.
Know that you popped into the Last Movie Outpost when we first had the trailer.
Yes.
And I wrote the article. I'm not a fan of remakes. Now and then they work, obviously, but what you're saying is this wasn't, like I say, just a kind of remake for the Asian audience. This was culturally different to identify with the Asian culture.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. It's like I'm the same. I think many people would be on the same boat as you. You know, you watch remakes, and sometimes you're questioning why was it made. And I respect that it reaches a new audience who might not otherwise watch the original. But in most cases, I say watch the original. You know, it's. I think it's fair to say Total Recall, the 2012 film, was a film that you know, when you compare it to the original, as much as I'm sure Len Wiseman and so forth had the best intention, the original is something that remains timeless. Whereas the remake, I saw this robot at the BFI and I forgot all about the robots, to be honest, until I saw it standing in the in the BFI a few
Yeah.
months ago. Um, so you have that. Now you have great remakes, of course, Ocean's 11, The Thing, The Fly, and so forth. But for the most part, I would say like 80, maybe 90% plus are unnecessary. And I didn't want to. I never thought I'd be the guy who goes into remakes. Like I have never had an, except for one film, which I'll just tell you, Plan 9 from Outer Space, because it's so
Okay.
bad. And I thought the concept is great. I have no intentions. It's not on my slate of things I want to remake, but I always felt that is a film which I would love to see remade properly. You know,
Weirdly, sometimes there are bad movies that could do with a good remake because there's a
agree.
solid story behind them.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the thing. Is like when the concept is promising and you're drawn to watch it, and then it lets you down. And in the case of Tape, of course, it wasn't. It was a very strong story, but I felt this is an opportunity for me to tell the story in a different way. You don't want to be sitting in the shadow of a master. By that I mean, you know, why would I want to emulate Linklater, a man who I'm so
Yeah.
heavily influenced by, inspired by? You know, what's the point? But rather I want to take a different approach. And because the original film um, had its differences, I mean, for one thing, the fact that he was focusing on DV filmmaking, experimenting with that with the camera there, I was not looking to do that. Already means that the film itself will look stylistically very different, and then how he approached it, how he told the story was also essential and different. Even the writing, it's actually four writers, so it's myself, Steve Belber, but then I also brought in two writers, Bonnie Lowe, and then the actress who plays Amy, Selena Lee. And I brought them on board because, you know, as strong as and positive as my intentions are, I will never be able to say this is what it's like to be a woman in Hong Kong. So I needed to bring in people who actually understand that, to give that perspective, to inject that
Yeah.
into the story. And that is, you know, that's been absolutely incredible in terms of both the experience of collaborating with them, having those discussions, and of course the end result of what you see in the film.
Brilliant. I mean, with it, you said that you like working in that close-knit environment. Do you find it's better doing it that way? In just sort of, obviously, there's just three actors in a room, essentially. The rest of, you know, there's a couple of beach scenes, but the rest of the movie is just three people in a room. Do you
Yeah.
prefer that kind of working that way?
I know it's an interesting question because like the next film I'm doing is an ensemble piece with a staggering number of characters. Like I've gone the polar opposite as a refresh. I was like cleansing my palette, but uh, I love the intimate nature of it, especially when you're dealing with a subject matter as sensitive as sexual assault. And when you're having these conversations, you're working closely with the actors. We're able to really explore the characters in a very meaningful way. And it's really great just to be collaborating closely with them. It's like a small knit family. I mean, like for filmmaking, it's not normally the case where you have extensive rehearsal time. Like people always want it, but they don't get it. In our case, with Tape, we had 2 months of rehearsals. So we had a staggering number of time for us to really delve into the story, into the characters. And because you're working with yeah, you're right, with over 90% of the film is just these three characters. In fact, 50% of it's two. So the fact
Yeah,
that you
that's
have
true.
that
Yeah,
time, yeah, that you're working with these actors means they have the time. You're giving your full time to them. They're giving their full time to you, and you're really able to explore that space and delve into the characters meaningfully, which is essential with a story like this because it's very much hinging on their performances. You know, we need to believe the characters, we need to believe their friendship, we need to, as an audience, be engaged and follow them and want to follow them. If any of the actors had faltered, we would lose the audience. And so I'm really grateful that they put all their efforts into exploring that, into telling the story well. And then the last part is the ambiguous nature, especially with John, that I didn't, and you know, because we had the time to really prepare for this, to explore the backstory and so on. It meant it was reflecting the powerful the performance that I was looking for. Since it was important to me that we not have a character who who becomes like a caricature in terms of when we think of Me Too, we always like to throw in Weinstein and so on, like a cartoon animated villain. So you don't want that. You need someone who we could consider to be a friend, who we would actually vouch for. Where if someone were to make an accusation about them, we would think that's impossible. It's not that person.
In fact, we could identify with him himself as well.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly it. Yeah, we need to be able to do that. And he's, as you see, he's a progressive filmmaker. Now, of course, we call it performative progressivism, which is what Wing's character says. But at the same time, there is that level of progression, and I wanted to really make things uncomfortable, and I wouldn't have been able to achieve that successfully if it wasn't for the time we had to work with these actors. Whether it's rehearsing, on just wherever we are, or on set, or so on. Just it's really meaningful. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the intimate experience which exists.
Brilliant. I mean, with it, it's funny because it's something I've mentioned before. But were you then influenced by sort of British? I want to say like sitcoms, but you've had things like Steptoe and Son and Only Fools and stuff,
Yeah.
where only
Yeah.
that generally it's only kind of like 2 or 3 people in a room.
Mhm.
Is that kind of an influence for you, or is it just sort of, was it more the actual, just the original movie of
Oh no, I had several
those
influences,
characters?
and it was interesting because the influences come from different spaces or different countries. So when I was, for example, when I was working with my cinematographer with Colleen Kwok, I was showing her scenes and clips from different films, sitcoms, and so forth. We had stuff from David Fincher, in the US. We had stuff from Wong Kar-wai and Hui, in Hong Kong. But then at the same time with Britain, you had things like Upstairs, Downstairs. Now it's weird to be saying that, and 40 Towers and so on. But it was really about,
Yeah.
look at how it's staged, look at how you can build that bond, that chemistry between them. And it was really just about sitting there and watching these scenes together, and trying to relate that to what we're trying to achieve here. It might seem so different in terms of this argument is happening between these two characters as they're moving around the table, but then you can see some similarities in how, especially in a 1980s British production, or 70s, there's very limited sets, but at the
Yeah.
same time you're drawn to the characters and how they're acting and how they're behaving and where the camera is. And so if that is effective, if that is so effective that I'm not even thinking about the fact that it's in one place, but I'm instead drawn to what is going on, then I want to draw from that, pull from that, and put it in our story. And I'm not going to say like Tarantino, it's an homage, but it's the case whereby we're trying to be inspired by what works and try to bring that into this new setting in Hong Kong.
Brilliant. So the Asian market is huge, isn't it? So I mean, funny enough with Tape, I think I've kind of seen every movie ever made. And then when you mentioned Tape, I was like, oh, that's a new one on me, which is quite unusual because people can't usually do that. But I mean, again, was it something that you wanted to make for that Asian market to just expand? I like to say there's obviously a huge cultural difference between the two, but it's something that you wanted to take over there.
Yeah, definitely. One of the big challenges which exists in Asian cinema, and specifically to Hong Kong cinema, is the stories that are being told today. And one of the goals I have is about how do we re-energize and elevate the Hong Kong film industry for the international market. By that I mean, if we think about 20 years ago, Hong Kong cinema was huge. And you had the films of Johnny To, like Election, of course, Infernal Affairs, and the fact that The Departed, and a US remake of a Hong Kong film wins the Best Picture Oscar. It was a fascinating and a fantastic time in Hong Kong cinema. But if we're going to today, the films that are being made in Hong Kong are very good, they're very strong, but they're no longer as relevant to the international audiences. That's partly because Hong Kong cinema has gravitated towards mainland China over the past few years in terms of the stories that they want to tell, the audiences they're targeting. And living in Hong Kong for since 2019, I now fly back and forth. So living there has made me realize that the industry there is fragmented. You've got essentially 3 types of filmmakers. There's one which is very much focused on China. There's on the mainland space. There's one which is focused only on Hong Kong itself, very local, and I cannot stress the localism enough. They might want to make a film about the garbage in Sha Tin. It's a bit like saying, I know, let's talk about council tax in Mile End or something like that. It's like it's very specific to the people there. But
I understand that reference, but not many people would. I totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's so small, so niche. And then you've got those who are focusing on what can we do internationally, which is of course what I'm focusing on as well. And so I wanted to use tape as an opportunity to really tell a story that is typically not made in Hong Kong. And of course, tape is the first ever Me Too film being made in Hong Kong. And even the way we film it, even the way we tell it, is not typical to Hong Kong cinema in terms of if you look at the style of a Hong Kong movie, the way it's edited and chopped and so forth, it's incredibly different. And so it was an interesting opportunity whereby we're working with Hong Kong talent, we're hiring Hong Kong crew, we're working with some of the best people there, but at the same time, we're also having the US side, and we're also having the UK side. In terms of like our editor, Mitch Holliday, is British. And we're amalgamating all of this to try to create this very original piece that we hope will speak to local audiences in Hong Kong, because it is a love letter to Hong Kong cinema, but at the very same time can hopefully engage with people around the world who can engage and relate to the subject matter, even if it's set in one place. It's something that's universal for all.
Brilliant. Okie doke. We haven't got long, but we are going to do now a quick fire round. So, there's no wrong answers, but just quick fire round, random questions. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Obviously.
Yeah, I've never drank coffee. You got me. I'm animated. If I drink coffee, I'll be bouncing around the walls like Speedy Gonzales.
True. Which actor would you most like to work with?
Cliched answer: Tom Cruise.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it's not the entertainment part. Of course, we know what he does now, but Born on the 4th of July, Magnolia, some of the greatest films of the last century had him, and he was working with the best filmmakers alive. Yeah, it's I always respect him as an entertainer, but also he's very good as a performer. He really gives his all. So yeah, 100% him.
What's the best movie ever made?
Mine's a drawn between The Godfather and The Dark Knight. I absolutely love those two films equally.
No, that's fair enough. Mine changes all the time, but no, I totally understand. What's your favorite film? Doesn't have to be the best, but what's your favorite?
Oh, favorite Dark Knight.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be an easy one then. Marvel or DC?
Which universe in DC? No, I definitely would say Marvel. Despite recent setbacks, I still am a bigger Marvel fan. I am looking forward to the new DC universe. I think James Gunn kicks it off well with Superman.
Yeah, like I say, there's a whole can of worms to open there, but yeah, no, I totally agree. What's your favorite TV show?
Oh, too many to count. I mean, Breaking Bad, I think is pretty much perfect, so I'll go with that.
Okay. Which movie that's been made in the past do you wish you could have directed?
I know it's kind of me cheating a bit, but it would be none, because those films, I think, as they are, I love them so much. I believe that if I came in, I'd tell a different story. I don't know if it would be the experience that I was trying to achieve or that I had when I watched them.
What a diplomatic answer.
Thank you.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
That's a hard one. I love them both. I guess I watch Star Wars addictively, so I guess that. Although I'm looking forward to future Star Trek movies.
Yeah. Again, fair enough. Have you ever been starstruck?
No, not fully starstruck. I will say I did see Tom Cruise once. So yeah, but I wasn't starstruck in the sense I'm just gawking. It was more a case of it's the only time where I was very impressed, and I was not actively talking to other people. I was trying to watch him, like how he navigates the press and so on. And right. He's so polite, and I really respected that.
Yeah, fair enough. Favorite band or singer?
Oh, that's a hard one. Okay, it sounds sad. Not sad, but I like Coldplay. I like listening to Coldplay. Yeah, and who are very relevant right now, considering the events of a recent past.
This is true. Yeah. If you hadn't got a Coldplay, you definitely have now at the moment.
Yeah.
What's the most amount of takes you've ever had to do?
Oh, I think it's maybe 20 or so. I will even say what it is at risk of embarrassing the actor. My first film, The Escort, Kevin Leslie, who I'm going to send this to watch. He had one word to say. One word. It's a hard one. It's a drug, azithromycin. So he had to say that word. Now, in fairness, we are shooting. It's late. It's past midnight. It's a final day of shooting, so you can guess it's a very intense, exhausting period. But yeah, it took a while, or roughly 20 takes or so before we got the word right. And at one point, we had the whole crew, just each of them, trying to work with him to get that word.
Also, they're going, come on, come on, come on.
Praying that he gets it right. But no, he's great. He was absolutely great, and I really felt for him. And it was a victorious moment when he got it right. And that, of course, that made the film.
Brilliant. And that's the end of our quickfire round.
Thanks.
So, where can people see Tape at the moment?
So Tape is coming out in UK cinemas on September 19th. Also, today is going to be announced, probably the next 2 hours, so after this has been filmed, Vancouver has also selected it, so it'll be playing at the Vancouver Film Festival. The festival runs between October 2nd to 12th. I think our screenings are 7th, 8th, and 10th, I believe.
Brilliant. Oh, fantastic. And then you say about the UK, but when do you know, like the international releases, like US or China?
Oh, yeah. So right now, our sales agent, EST, are brilliant. We're working on that. We will very soon have more international releases. We have already sold it, for example, to Korea, but there are other territories which should be coming out soon as well.
Excellent. Bizhan, thank you so much for joining us here at the Last Movie Outpost.
No, thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure speaking with you.